There was something cold about the way his smartwatch glinted under the fluorescent lights as he strode across the polished tile, his footsteps precise and slightly too loud, like a digital metronome keeping perfect time. He didn't acknowledge the receptionist, didn't smile at the security guard, just walked in with his sleek titanium briefcase and AirPods firmly in place, as if he already owned every inch of the building. Technically, he did. Jaden Frost, the new CEO. 33, young enough to still carry that unmistakable gleam in his eyes that said the world was his to optimize and restructure according to his algorithms. His appointment had been announced just a week ago in one of those sugar-coated company-wide emails about digital transformation leadership. I had weathered enough transformations in my 17 years at Vanguard Corporation to know what that actually meant. Someone upstairs wanted data-driven efficiencies, and usually at the expense of experienced staff like me. I observed him from behind the glass wall of my small corner office, not quite executive level, but strategically positioned away from the buzz of interns and marketing assistants, where I could think clearly without constant notifications and pings. Jaden didn't knock on doors, he simply appeared, interrupted meetings, swept through departments with his tablet constantly in hand, fingers swiping and tapping, asking rapid-fire questions that didn't wait for complete answers. The latest AI assistant on his smartwatch recorded everything. He smiled when people hesitated, not cruelly, but with the cool satisfaction of someone who had already calculated their value on a spreadsheet. He didn't come to see me that day. I suppose my international relationship metrics weren't on his dashboard yet. That was fine. I preferred to stay off the digital radar for now. At lunch, a few of us gathered in the break room, a group of veteran employees who didn't pretend to match the frenetic energy of the 20-something digital natives. Patricia from accounting joked that the new CEO reminded her of a substitute teacher who thought he could fix an entire school system with a fancy app in a week. We all laughed quietly, carefully. I stirred my loose-leaf tea with an actual spoon rather than the disposable stirrers and kept my observations to myself. I had outlasted 3 CEOs already. One left for health reasons, another for legal reasons, and the last because he tried to outsource relationships he didn't understand to automation that couldn't handle the nuance. It didn't matter how expensive their wearable tech was, they always made the same mistake, assuming experience could be quantified in a dashboard. When I passed Jaden in the hallway later, he glanced at my digital ID badge, then looked straight through me, his eyes already back on his tablet. He didn't recognize my name, didn't pause to ask about my role, and showed zero interest in the fact that I was carrying the quarterly performance data he'd undoubtedly be featuring in his Friday presentation. To him, I was just another outdated node in the system, a legacy component perhaps flagged for optimization. And yet, as I returned to my office, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was shifting, like the electric charge in the air before a storm. Nothing catastrophic had happened yet, but you could feel it approaching in the way people lowered their voices when discussing projects, in how certain managers avoided sharing information, in the unusual paleness of Vivian Hudson, our HR director, as she hurried between meetings. I closed my door, silenced my phone, and sat down at my desk. There's a distinctive kind of digital stillness that falls over a workplace when it's about to be disrupted, and after 17 years, I recognized the pattern all too well. The next week crept forward like a background system update, seemingly innocuous at first, but irreversibly altering everything beneath the surface. No official company-wide announcements appeared in our inboxes yet, no termination notices, just a series of efficiency analysis meetings behind closed doors and hushed conversations in hallways that abruptly switched to small talk whenever someone from the executive floor walked by. I maintained a low profile, as I always had. Completed my reports ahead of schedule, coordinated the next AR conference with Golden Dragon Tech in Shanghai, and composed carefully worded emails in Mandarin to smooth over some accounting irregularities their system had flagged. I rarely encountered Jaden directly, but his influence spread through the company like a digital virus. Notifications, new tracking software, productivity metrics suddenly appearing on everyone's dashboards. It wasn't long before the first optimizations began. He started removing mid-level managers, people who had built the company's relationships for over a decade, sometimes 2. They'd receive calendar invites for brief meetings and simply never return to their desks. No farewell emails allowed, no team gatherings, just empty workstations and hastily packed personal items. Their replacements materialized almost instantly, former colleagues of Jaden's from Silicon Valley. People with gleaming LinkedIn profiles, impressive-sounding titles from tech startups, and absolutely no understanding of how our actual international business functioned beneath the data. They asked embarrassingly basic questions while staring at their tablets, needed cultural contexts explained repeatedly, and made condescending jokes about our legacy systems and analog thinking. They called it digital transformation. I silently recognized it as relationship destruction in progress. I sat through these transitions with outward calm, watching, listening, and taking actual handwritten notes while others frantically typed on keyboards. I knew better than to voice concerns. I'd seen how fragile corporate stability could be under leaders like Jaden, how they interpreted the quiet caution of experienced employees as tacit approval rather than the survival mechanism it truly was. It was during the weekly optimization meeting on Thursday morning that I first felt the real threat vibrating through the air like an electric current. Jaden was there, of course, commanding the front of the conference room like a tech guru demonstrating the latest innovation to an audience he considered digital immigrants. His AI assistant projected slides that transitioned too quickly for proper absorption, while he rattled off buzzwords like algorithmic efficiency, automated integration, and agile methodologies. Our data indicates we need to optimize our resource allocation, he announced, his practiced Silicon Valley smile flashing as his smartwatch subtly vibrated. We need to leverage strategic partnerships and eliminate redundancies. The AI has evaluated every department, no exceptions. He didn't look in my direction when he said redundancies, but the targeted message felt unmistakable. I glanced around the sleek conference table. Several colleagues shifted uncomfortably in their ergonomic chairs, while others stared directly at their tablets, expressions carefully blank, already updating their resumes in their minds. When the meeting concluded, people filed out quietly, AirPods immediately reinserted. I gathered my handwritten notes methodically, deliberately timing my exit to avoid both the eager early departures and the vulnerable stragglers. As I rose, I felt a presence beside me. "Eleanor, correct," he said, glancing at my badge while his smartwatch probably pulled up my personnel file. "Yes," I replied, feeling the weight of my 47 years of experience against his 33 years of ambition. He displayed that same superficial smile he offered to everyone whose data he'd already analyzed. "Remind me what your primary function is again?" I paused deliberately. I could have recited my official title from the organizational chart. I could have listed my KPIs and metrics, but I knew algorithms couldn't capture the value of what I actually did. I manage our strategic relationship with Golden Dragon Tech and other key partners throughout Asia, I said with measured precision. His brow furrowed slightly as he swiped something on his tablet. "According to our systems, we have AI translation software integrated with our communication platforms now, don't we?" "I don't just facilitate language translation," I replied, keeping my voice calm despite the frustration tightening in my chest. "I navigate cultural nuances, build trust-based relationships, negotiate sensitive matters, elements that require human judgment and cultural intelligence that AI simply can't replicate." He nodded distractedly, already half turned away, eyes returning to his dashboard. "Good to know, good to know. Our efficiency algorithms will be streamlining all processes soon. Appreciate your input on the legacy systems." And with that, he was gone, already speaking rapid-fire instructions to his AI assistant. I stood there for a moment under the harsh LED lights, feeling a cold, heavy certainty settle into my bones. He didn't understand what I actually did. Worse, his algorithms had already decided it wasn't worth understanding. Friday arrived with the heavy digital silence of disabled notifications and something far worse, collective dread. The office was unnaturally quiet. Conversations happened in whispers, eyes constantly darted toward the glass-walled meeting rooms. The rumor flowing through private messenger channels was that another wave of resource optimization was scheduled before the weekend. At 10:15 a.m., my screen flashed with a notification, meeting request. Jaden Frost. 10:30 a.m. Conference Room B. No agenda, no explanation. The exact pattern that had preceded every other disappearance this month. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded composedly in my lap, my breathing measured. Then I rose, straightened my navy blazer, and made my way to the conference room with deliberate steps, moving not with resignation but with dignity that no efficiency metric could possibly calculate. When I entered, Jaden was already positioned at the head of the table, his tablet displaying data visualizations I couldn't see. Vivian from HR sat 2 chairs away, her face a professional mask, her eyes avoiding mine as she pretended to review something on her screen. Jaden gestured to the chair across from him without looking up from his device. "Eleanor, thanks for your prompt response," he said with the artificial efficiency of someone checking off a task. "Please, have a seat." I sat down, hands resting calmly on the polished table. He tapped his tablet, probably triggering a pre-scripted termination protocol, and began. Our AI-driven organizational analysis has been reviewing our internal structure over the past few weeks, and after processing all available data points, we've identified redundancies in certain functions. His voice was smooth, emotionless, like the premium voice setting on a digital assistant. Your position, while historically valuable, shows a negative efficiency correlation with our new digital integration direction. Our automated translation and relationship management software can handle our international communication needs moving forward. The algorithm indicates there's no longer a statistical justification for a dedicated human intermediary. I listened without interruption, my expression revealing nothing. I wasn't shocked or even surprised. This was the predictable outcome when human relationships were reduced to data points by someone who didn't value what couldn't be quantified. Jaden's smile flickered briefly, an automated attempt to simulate empathy. "Of course, we acknowledge your years of service to Vanguard. HR has prepared a standard severance package, 2 months compensation plus any accrued vacation time. The metrics indicate this is more than fair." Vivian slid a tablet toward me with a digital severance agreement ready for my fingerprint. Still, I said nothing. Jaden leaned back, misinterpreting my silence as hesitation rather than assessment. "Change can be challenging, I understand, but our data shows it's necessary for optimized growth." I smiled slightly, not with bitterness or anger, just with genuine pity for someone who couldn't see the human-shaped hole in his perfect system. "You're confident your algorithms can manage the human relationships I've built?" I asked quietly. He gave a short laugh, bordering on condescending. "Our AI systems are far more efficient. We need to evolve beyond legacy thinking. It's simply business optimization, nothing personal." I stood up, deliberately leaving the tablet untouched. I looked at him directly, seeing not a visionary leader but a young man playing with powerful digital tools he fundamentally misunderstood. "I wish you good luck with Golden Dragon Tech on Monday," I said with pointed precision. Jaden blinked, momentarily confused by the specific reference, but then his confidence reasserted itself like a default setting. "Thank you, Eleanor. Best of luck with your future endeavors as well." I walked from the conference room without a backward glance. Past Vivian's sympathetic expression, past the concerned glances of colleagues whose monitors had already alerted them to my departure, down the corridor lined with screens displaying motivational productivity metrics. A place where I had once belonged but now felt as foreign as an analog watch in a smartwatch store. The weekend after my algorithmic dismissal brought an unexpected sense of tranquility. I conducted a proper digital detox, shutting down all company notifications, removing work apps from my devices, organizing my home office into an actual physical space rather than a virtual one. A few former colleagues sent private messages of support, those brave enough to risk the algorithm flagging their communication patterns. Others maintained digital silence, aware that the system could mark them for optimization if they associated with someone deemed redundant. I understood their self-preservation instinct. On Sunday evening, I updated my professional profile on the relevant platforms, not from desperation but from strategic necessity. What I had built over 17 years transcended digital metrics. It was something algorithms couldn't properly evaluate. Real human connections. Trust-based reputation. Cross-cultural understanding. These weren't data points that disappeared just because Jaden Frost's AI decided to delete my position with a digital signature. Monday morning, as New York pulsed to life beneath gray skies, I dressed in a tailored navy dress with minimal accessories, placed my tablet and a leather-bound notebook in my bag, and entered the stylish Midtown offices of Arkway Partners International Consultants. A former associate from the Global Business Forum had messaged me privately within hours of hearing about my situation. They were seeking someone who could navigate the complex cultural terrain of Asian business relationships, someone who understood that algorithms couldn't capture the nuances beneath formal agreements. The meeting balanced professionalism with authentic human connection. Thomas Arkway himself, a distinguished figure in international consulting for 4 decades, engaged with me directly, asked thoughtful questions about my approach to relationship building, and most refreshingly, actually listened to my responses rather than tracking predefined metrics. It had been years since I felt truly seen and valued in a room full of executives rather than being viewed as a legacy system in need of upgrading. When I returned to my apartment that afternoon, a personalized offer awaited me, not an automated template, but a message crafted specifically for me. Better compensation, genuine decision-making authority, the opportunity to build something meaningful rather than maintaining someone else's crumbling digital kingdom. I accepted without hesitation. Meanwhile, Vanguard Corporation's internal communication channels buzzed with nervous energy that reached me through occasional messages from the few colleagues who maintained contact. "Jaden's telling everyone you were resistant to innovation," read one secure message. "Claims you were just trying to protect outdated processes, and that the company's algorithms show improved efficiency without legacy gatekeepers." Another notification: they've contracted with an AI-powered agency from Singapore. No dedicated relationship manager anymore, just rotating service bots and automation. Their dashboard shows it's 43% more efficient on paper. I reviewed these messages with clinical detachment. I'd seen Jaden's personality type before in previous tech-focused executives. When their systems failed, they never questioned the algorithm. Instead, they blamed the human variables they'd eliminated, rewriting the data narrative to protect their digital reputation. Monday morning commenced with the standard corporate performance: premium coffee in branded mugs, crisp business attire, the manufactured energy of people trying to appear indispensable to the algorithm. Inside Vanguard Corporation's headquarters, an executive team gathered in the 15th floor VR-enabled conference room, reviewing their presentation dashboards for what they expected would be a routine contract renewal. Golden Dragon Tech's delegation from Shanghai was scheduled to arrive within the hour. The deal represented substantial value, a 3-year partnership extension worth several $1 million. This was one of Vanguard's cornerstone agreements, a relationship that stabilized not only their quarterly projections but their very standing in international markets. Jaden Frost sat at the head of the polished conference table, fingers restlessly tapping on his tablet, occasionally glancing at the countdown timer on his smartwatch. To his left sat Ryan Copeland and Brittany Morrison, his hand-picked lieutenants, impressive degrees, immaculate digital profiles, completely unversed in the subtle art of international relationship management. Across Manhattan, I settled into my sunlit office at Arkway Partners, calmly sipping single-origin coffee as I powered up my system. I didn't need to check the time. I knew precisely what would unfold over the next hour. At 10 a.m. exactly, Golden Dragon's representatives arrived at Vanguard. Wei Chang, their senior vice president of international strategy, accompanied by 2 experienced advisors. They entered the conference room with that distinctive combination of formal politeness and shrewd assessment that Western tech executives often misinterpreted as passivity. Jaden stood and thrust his hand forward enthusiastically, his practiced pitch meeting smile firmly in place. "Welcome to Vanguard. We're excited to demonstrate our new international partnership platform." The Golden Dragon delegation exchanged brief, formal handshakes. No traditional greetings, no personal inquiries about families or health. The atmosphere was properly professional, distinctly cool. Jaden, oblivious to these warning signs, immediately launched into his presentation, aggressively paced slides filled with data visualizations, efficiency metrics, and automated translation features. He spoke rapidly, confidently, advancing through complex information without pausing for questions or comprehension. Wei Chang observed silently for several moments, his expression revealing nothing. Then he raised his hand slightly, instantly halting Jaden's flow of words mid-sentence. "We would like to speak with Eleanor Grayson," he said in perfect, measured English. The room fell completely silent. Jaden's carefully rehearsed smile flickered as uncertainty crossed his features. He hesitated, visibly recalibrating. "Eleanor is no longer with Vanguard. We've optimized our communication systems with AI-driven solutions for more efficient service delivery." Wei Chang exchanged a meaningful glance with his advisors. No one spoke for what felt like an algorithmic eternity. Finally, Wei Chang responded, his voice cool and precisely controlled. "Miss Grayson was not merely a translator or communication facilitator. She was our trusted strategic partner. She understood our business philosophy, our cultural context, our expectations as a family enterprise. Without her presence, I fear we must fundamentally reassess our relationship with Vanguard." Jaden laughed nervously, eyes darting to his silent AI assistant for guidance. "I assure you, our new automated systems can provide even better support for your." Wei Chang silenced him with the slightest gesture of his hand, a culturally significant movement that no algorithm would recognize. "You have committed a serious error in judgment," he stated directly. "Removing Ms. Grayson demonstrates profound disrespect, both toward a valuable professional and toward the relationship we have cultivated for 15 years. Jaden's face flushed visibly. I appreciate your perspective, but our data shows that digital transformation and AI integration." Wei Chang rose from his chair with deliberate calm, and his colleagues immediately followed suit. "There will be no contract renewal at this time," he announced with quiet finality. "We value human relationships and mutual respect above technological efficiency. You have demonstrated neither." Without further discussion, the delegation departed, their measured footsteps echoing precisely against the marble floor. Jaden remained frozen in his chair, staring at the doorway as though expecting his AI assistant to suggest a recovery strategy. Ryan frantically tapped at his tablet, trying to access contingency protocols. Brittany whispered something about scheduling a follow-up video call, but everyone present, including Jaden, recognized the irrevocable nature of what had just occurred. The next several days at Vanguard Corporation unfolded like a system failure cascade, one critical error triggering a series of escalating breakdowns. The terminated Golden Dragon partnership initiated an unexpected chain reaction. One by one, other Asian partners began sending formal inquiries about their agreements. Virtual meetings were postponed with cryptic explanations. Negotiations that had been progressing smoothly suddenly encountered technical difficulties. Several smaller contracts were quietly disconnected from the system. Inside Vanguard's sleek headquarters, the atmosphere transformed from tense productivity to barely controlled chaos. Employees moved between workstations with heightened urgency, communication became minimal and guarded. The same managers who had enthusiastically promoted streamlined digital workflows now huddled in glass-walled rooms with privacy screens activated. Rumors circulated through encrypted channels about imminent budget recalibrations. Middle management exchanged concerned glances during video conferences as board-level emergency sessions appeared on the executive calendar. I monitored the situation with detached interest, requiring no special effort on my part. On Thursday morning, just 4 days after the Golden Dragon debacle, my phone displayed an incoming call from an unregistered number. I allowed it to redirect to voicemail. 30 minutes later, another call appeared, this time from a Vanguard extension I immediately recognized. Intrigued by the persistence, I finally accepted the connection. "Eleanor?" "Jaden Frost here," came the voice, artificially upbeat despite the obvious strain. "Hope you're adapting well to your new situation." I reclined in my ergonomic chair, a slight smile forming. I'm thriving, actually. Thank you for asking. I thought we might have a conversation, he continued rapidly, attempting to power through the awkwardness. Clear up any misunderstandings. Perhaps explore some collaborative opportunities moving forward. Collaborative opportunities? I echoed with deliberate coolness. Yes, exactly. Obviously, there were some communication gaps, some transitional calibration issues. I believe we could develop a framework to leverage your expertise. As an external technical advisor, perhaps. No formal reintegration necessary, just specialized support where analytics indicate gaps. The translation was clear. He wanted to extract my knowledge and relationships without acknowledging his mistake or restoring my position. He wanted algorithmic correction without system reconfiguration. He sought a quick patch for the critical error he'd created. I allowed the digital silence to stretch until the discomfort became palpable. The compensation would be substantial, of course, he added hastily, misinterpreting my quiet assessment as negotiation tactics. I weighed my response with strategic precision. I could have rejected him outright. I could have terminated the connection, leaving him to face the consequences of his algorithmic arrogance. But something crystallized inside me, not emotional resentment, not unproductive anger, but something more calculated and precise. A strategic opportunity. Let's meet in person, I said finally. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. My office at Arkway Partners. Jaden's relief was audible. Perfect. Looking forward to it. I'll have my assistant send the confirmation. I ended the call without further comment. The following morning, I prepared with deliberate care. Tailored navy dress, minimal accessories, and a perfectly composed expression that revealed nothing of my internal calculations. Jaden arrived precisely 10 minutes late, the exact interval calculated to suggest importance without outright disrespect. His premium smartwatch still adorned his wrist, but the confident energy that typically powered his movements had noticeably diminished. Eleanor, he said, striding into Arkway's elegant glass-walled conference room with forced animation. Appreciate you making the time. I shook his hand with professional detachment and directed him to a seat. He immediately launched into what was clearly a rehearsed pitch, attempting to frame the situation as a mutually beneficial opportunity. Certain unforeseen complications had emerged, he acknowledged, some temporary communication misalignments with international partners. He systematically avoided terms like failure or mistake. His carefully constructed professional identity wouldn't permit such acknowledgments. I listened without interruption, my expression revealing nothing of my internal assessment. When he finally concluded, he spread his hands in a gesture of apparent openness and said, "We simply need someone with established relationship capital to recalibrate certain client communications. No need for organizational integration or title complications, just targeted technical support." I allowed a calculated silence to expand between us before responding. "You're offering me a role as an external consultant," I stated with deliberate precision. "No decision-making authority, no public correction of the narrative you've constructed about my departure, no acknowledgement of the fundamental error in your approach." Jaden's complexion showed a subtle flush. "This isn't personal, Eleanor. It's simply business optimization." I smiled then, a genuine expression that reflected my clear recognition of the perfect strategic position I now occupied. "My response is similarly optimized." He blinked, momentarily unable to process my unpredictable response. "I'll evaluate your proposal," I continued smoothly. "But any arrangement would need to align with my specific parameters." "What parameters?" he asked, professional confidence visibly receding. "You'll receive that information when appropriate," I replied, standing to signal the meeting's conclusion. Because I now possessed everything required for the next phase. I had no intention of rescuing his failing system. I was strategically positioned to ensure he, and everyone in his organization, would understand precisely how severely he had miscalculated when applying purely technical solutions to essentially human relationships. And this time, there would be no ambiguity about who had identified the critical flaw in his perfect algorithm. The first rule of strategic response, when executed properly, is patience. Not emotional reaction, not public confrontation. Calculated patience. I devoted the weekend after our meeting to meticulous planning. I had no intention of storming into Vanguard Corporation demanding vindication. Such an approach would have been emotionally satisfying but strategically flawed, exactly the reactive behavior Jaden's algorithms would have predicted. No, my methodology would be more deliberate, more precise, more effective. On Monday morning, operating under a digital consulting agreement that Jaden had hurriedly approved without properly examining the access permissions, I re-entered the building. No company-wide announcement, no updated profile in the system, just a quiet digital signature granting me strategic access to crucial databases. He believed his algorithm was using my expertise. His algorithm had miscalculated. The corporate atmosphere had fundamentally transformed since my departure. Gone was the casual professional camaraderie, the natural rhythm of colleagues who trusted the organizational structure. Now I observed only artificial interactions punctuated by hurried consultations and forced enthusiasm. By noon, my access credentials had been processed through their security protocols. By mid-afternoon, I had established secure contact with Wei Chang, not through monitored corporate channels, naturally. I used an encrypted private line he had provided years earlier, when we both understood that authentic business relationships required communication beyond corporate surveillance. He answered with remarkable promptness. "Ms. Grayson," he said with genuine warmth, though I detected a note of professional curiosity in his tone. "This is an unexpected pleasure." I responded in Mandarin, choosing words with cultural sensitivity and respect, appropriate to our established relationship. "I must offer my sincere apologies," I said, "for my abrupt departure and the disruption it caused to our long-standing partnership." Wei Chang remained silent momentarily, evaluating the significance of my statement. "I understand completely," he replied eventually. "Some circumstances develop beyond our control. In some cases, I acknowledged softly. And in others, they result from fundamental misjudgments of what truly matters." A measured silence followed. Then, "Are you communicating as a representative of Vanguard Corporation?" "No," I clarified with precision. "I'm contacting you personally because our professional relationship deserves authentic explanation." I provided a factual, emotionally neutral account of how the algorithm had determined my role redundant, how my concerns about relationship disruption had been dismissed as legacy thinking, how the new leadership approached our partnership not as a human relationship but as a digital efficiency opportunity to be optimized. Wei Chang listened without interruption, a cultural courtesy that no algorithm could replicate. When I concluded, he asked with characteristic directness, "Where have you positioned yourself now?" "Arkway Partners International," I responded. "We specialize in relationship-centered global partnerships." Respectfully. Transparently. After another thoughtful pause came a subtle sound, not quite laughter, but knowing recognition. "I see," he said. "Perhaps the time has arrived to evaluate alternative partnership structures." "I would never presume to influence your business decisions," I replied with appropriate deference. "But I would consider it an honor to continue our professional relationship." We concluded our conversation with properly formal exchanges, every phrase carefully calibrated for cultural appropriateness. And with that single genuine human interaction, the first critical support had been removed from Jaden's crumbling data model. It didn't manifest as a sudden system crash. Organizations rarely fail that way. They degrade gradually through cascading errors, imperceptibly at first, then accelerating until total system failure becomes inevitable. The week following Golden Dragon Tech's partnership termination with Vanguard, the algorithmic predictions began collapsing. Smaller accounts quietly closed their connections. Suppliers implemented revised payment terms. A major European client, receiving security alerts about operational instability, temporarily suspended all pending agreements. Within Vanguard's headquarters, the atmosphere transformed from controlled panic to undisguised desperation. Employees moved through spaces with hunched urgency, communication reduced to essential functions. The same managers who had enthusiastically endorsed AI-optimized workflows now conducted emergency strategy sessions behind privacy screens. The next wave of workforce optimization began, this time without even the pretense of strategic realignment. Severance offers diminished. Resignation notifications multiplied. Yet Jaden continued clinging to the conviction that his algorithmic solutions could reverse the cascade failure. By week's end, I had arranged a formal introduction between Wei Cheng and Thomas Arkway's executive leadership team. No digital announcements, no press releases, just an authentic meeting between professionals who valued human relationships. On Monday morning, I requested a meeting with Jaden. He accepted immediately, desperate for any potential solution his dashboard might offer. We met in the same sterile conference room where he had initially proposed my technical advisor role. His appearance had deteriorated significantly, the premium smartwatch still prominent on his wrist, but his face showed clear stress indicators, eyes surrounded by evidence of sleep deprivation. "Eleanor," he said, forcing an entrepreneur's optimistic expression. "Really appreciate you initiating this. We could definitely use your strategic input now more than ever. I'm confident we can pivot through this challenge together." I halted his practiced pitch with a simple raised hand. "I'm not here to provide technical assistance," I stated with calm precision. He blinked, momentarily disoriented by this deviation from his expected scenario. "I'm here to formally conclude our arrangement." Something flickered across his features: anger? Apprehension? Impossible to categorize precisely. His mouth opened to respond, but I continued without allowing interruption. "You eliminated my position without understanding its true function. You replaced relationship management with automated systems that you never properly evaluated. You labeled me resistant to innovation. You informed the entire organization that human relationship management was unnecessary." I leaned forward slightly, maintaining perfect emotional control in my voice. "Your algorithm produced incorrect conclusions." He shifted uncomfortably, his confident posture collapsing. "Listen, Eleanor. Golden Dragon Tech terminated their partnership because I personally informed Wei Cheng of the value your system placed on our 15-year relationship," I stated factually. "Arkway Partners is now establishing agreements with the clients your algorithm is losing." His expression transformed as color visibly drained from his face. "You orchestrated this?" he asked, barely audible. "I didn't sabotage anything," I replied with professional detachment. "I simply demonstrated to our former partners what genuine respect looks like in business relationships. They made independent decisions based on accurate information." He sat motionless, visibly attempting to process the system failure surrounding him. I gathered my materials and stood. "I didn't return to salvage your operation," I said, my voice precise as calibrated steel. "I returned to ensure you understood exactly who revealed the fundamental flaw in your perfect system." He rose unsteadily, hands showing slight tremors. "You'll experience professional consequences for this," he said, his voice betraying his collapsed confidence. I smiled then, genuinely, with the quiet satisfaction of a strategist whose analysis had proven correct. "No," I responded simply. "You already are." Without further communication, I exited the space. I didn't look back, not at the office environment, not at Jaden, not at the failing operation crumbling behind me. Some system corrections don't require dramatic interventions. Sometimes, it's sufficient to simply walk away, allowing the inevitable consequences of fundamentally flawed algorithms to manifest naturally, consuming everything they mistakenly believed they could optimize without understanding. As I departed Vanguard Corporation for the final time, the winter sunlight pierced through Manhattan's cloud cover, casting striking contrasts across the digital cityscape. My smartphone pulsed with notifications, colleagues at Arkway confirming our afternoon meeting with Wei Cheng, a calendar alert about next week's trip to Beijing for negotiations with another former Vanguard client, a message from Thomas Arkway about expanding our Asia-Pacific division. I experienced no sense of triumph. No vengeful satisfaction. I felt liberated. Released from the burden of having my human skills undervalued by algorithms, freed from the constraint of watching my relationship expertise dismissed as inefficient, unburdened from the frustration that had momentarily overwhelmed me when Jaden had so casually allowed his system to discard 17 years of relationship building. This resolution wasn't about him or his failed algorithm. It had never truly been about him. It centered on something more essential: the recognition that genuine value resides in human connections built on mutual respect, in cultural understanding developed through years of careful observation and adaptation, in relationship nuances that cannot be automated, outsourced, or reduced to efficiency metrics on a data visualization dashboard. The following morning, I noticed that the Wall Street Journal's business section reported Vanguard Corporation had announced a comprehensive digital transformation recalibration. Financial analysts described it more accurately: the beginning of systematic corporate failure. Jaden's name appeared nowhere in the coverage. His algorithmic approach had become as irrelevant as he had once calculated my human expertise to be. Meanwhile, at Arkway Partners, my new office entrance displayed an elegant nameplate with both digital and traditional elements: Eleanor Grayson, Senior Vice President of International Relations. Not because I had negotiated for the title, but because they accurately valued what I contributed, something Jaden's algorithms could never properly measure. Ultimately, I hadn't needed elaborate strategies or sabotage. I hadn't needed confrontational approaches or ultimatums. I had simply established appropriate boundaries and allowed natural consequences to manifest, had merely demonstrated to our business partners that better options existed, built on foundations of an authentic relationship rather than superficial efficiency metrics. As I integrated into my new position, I briefly considered sending Jaden a final message, not from any desire for vindication, but to offer a fundamental insight about the true cost of allowing algorithms to devalue human experience. After consideration, I chose not to engage further. Certain lessons can only be properly integrated through direct experience with system failure. And his recalibration was already processing in real time.